Hey guys, it's me, Menya, and today I want to show you how intermittent fasting has completely transformed my relationship with food, allowing me to become stronger, leaner, and more satisfied when eating than at any other point in my life. I've already shared my experience with clients and close friends who have started fasting and completely transformed their own lives. So I hope to teach you everything that I know about intermittent fasting so that by the end of this video, you'll be able to reap the benefits for yourself. But before we dive in, I need to make a pretty big disclaimer. I've been extremely interested in nutrition and how it relates to building muscle and improving performance since 2005, which was when I started running track and field in college. But over the past 6 or so years, I've become increasingly interested in the impact of food and its ability to increase longevity, which is how long we live, increase health span, which is how long we remain healthy, and to improve performance, which for me ranges from playing recreational soccer to deadlifting almost 500 pounds. Since I started my journey with nutrition, I've tried almost every eating pattern out there on the planet, including 3 meals a day like most people, 6 meals a day like most bodybuilders, 1 meal a day, which is known as OMAD, and 2 meals a day, which I've been doing now for the past 4 years. I work as a health and performance coach, and I've spent a ridiculous amount of time studying, researching, writing, and educating clients, friends, and family on ways to make better eating and exercise habits without all the stress, shame, or restriction that's typically associated with getting in shape through dieting. That being said, what's considered true now won't necessarily be true in the future because there are always new discoveries being made and new trends that are impacting public opinion. So it's really important to keep an open mind when it comes to learning about nutrition. Anyway, I'm saying all this because even with my certifications, personal experience, and professional experience as a nutrition coach, what I know about the impact of food on the human body pales in comparison to some of the world-class experts out there like Peter Attia, David Sinclair, Rhonda Patrick, and Mark Hyman, to name a few. Those guys and plenty of others have devoted countless personal, academic, and professional hours to understanding how food is related to brain and body health. So in this video, I'll show you what intermittent fasting is and how you can benefit from practicing even just a few hours a day. But if you're interested in diving deep into the science of fasting, I strongly recommend checking out some of those people I mentioned after watching this video. All right, now let's get into it.
Let's take a break, been a long day. Hit your line, what you fall through with the light sticks. Maybe help me spark the ideas. We got nowhere else to go, it's only up from there. I've been on my own, just running through the field. Say vivid for the ears, I know that's how they like. Yeah, I fantasize. Tell me that it's real when it's all said and done.
This video is about fasting, more specifically intermittent fasting. And I'm gonna keep it as simple but informative as possible by focusing on 5 questions. 1, what is intermittent fasting? 2, is it really the oldest diet? 3, how does it impact the body? 4, what are some common ways to practice intermittent fasting? And 5, how can I avoid being hungry all the time? As always, before we get started, please subscribe below so that you don't miss out on any new videos, and hit that thumbs up button because you're a hero. Intermittent fasting is often called IF. So you may hear me go back and forth between both names during this video. Intermittent means not continuous or steady, while fasting is to abstain from any kind of food or drink. So intermittent fasting is basically a model of eating that has only 2 windows: eating windows and not eating windows. What and how much you eat are completely different factors. So although people like to think of intermittent fasting as a diet, it's not. A diet is the kind of food that a person habitually eats. Intermittent fasting is an eating pattern with a focus on time restriction. This is how Peter Attia puts it on his blog. Whether it's what you eat or don't eat, i.e. dietary restriction or DR, how much you eat, i.e. caloric restriction or CR, or when you eat and don't eat, i.e. time restriction or TR, virtually all of the dietary schemes you can think of can be distilled into these 3 elements in some combination. Intermittent fasting is in the time restriction category, and although it doesn't specifically determine what and how much you eat, it does impact those other categories. What that means is that if you decide to fast for 20 hours each day and only eat within a 4-hour window, like tens of millions of people do each year during the 30 days of Ramadan, the kinds and quantity of food you eat will probably be impacted by the fact that you only have 4 hours to eat each day. I'm not Muslim and I don't practice Ramadan, but I'll actually explore that as a case study in a later video. A little side note. Fasting doesn't get nearly as much love as it should because at its core, it requires eating less food. And considering how much most of us love to eat, including myself, just being told to eat less isn't very effective. Less eating also means less buying means less spending, and less spending means less money for companies and the government, which are both very much in the business of making money. So although there's a growing mountain of data that supports the long list of health benefits from fasting, the fitness industry is happy to keep creating fad diets, celebrity workouts, and fat loss supplements as long as people are willing to buy them. And although most people are looking for a shortcut, a hack, or a quick fix that doesn't actually exist, intermittent fasting can be an extremely effective way to build muscle, burn fat, and get in fantastic shape while eating all your favorite foods. Technically, no, because intermittent fasting is not a diet, but it is the oldest and most widely practiced eating pattern in the history of mankind. Human beings have been around for the past 200,000 years, but if you include our early ancestors, then the human body has been developing for the past 5 to 7 million years, which is a ridiculously long time. Almost all the processes that occur in the human body have their roots in those early ancestors, and although they had very different lifestyles than ours are today, they still laid the foundation of our modern bodies. So from a survival standpoint, eating is imperative. We have to eat. And since our ancestors didn't have supermarkets, restaurants, or refrigerators, they ate when they could and then they fasted when they couldn't, which is exactly why the human body is so well adapted to fasting. That's also why we still tend to eat more than we need to whenever we have access to food, which in many parts of the world is all the time. Fasting impacts the body in all sorts of amazing ways. First of all, it adjusts hormone levels to make stored body fat more accessible, which basically means that fasting is your body's natural fat-burning mode. This happens because when you fast, your blood glucose levels drop dramatically. Blood glucose is sugar floating around in your bloodstream, and anytime you eat, this sugar level rises. But as a result of low glucose levels from fasting, your body's insulin levels also drop, because the two have a positive correlation. Less glucose means less insulin, and less insulin means better access to stored body fat for energy. Secondly, your cells go into hyper repair mode through an important process called autophagy. Japanese cell biologist Yoshinori Ohsumi won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016 for his research on how cells recycle and renew themselves through this process. His research showed that fasting activates autophagy, which helps slow down the aging process and has all sorts of positive impacts on cell renewal. Autophagy is a cellular process that digests and removes old and dysfunctional proteins that build up inside cells. It's basically like an extremely powerful yet totally natural detox for your body. The challenge is that it takes anywhere from 48 to 72 hours, or 2 to 3 days, to really reap the benefits of autophagy. So if you're looking for a real full body cleanse, fasting for 3 days is definitely the way to go. But if the idea of not eating for 3 full days seems crazy to you, I'll show you some much easier ways to reap the benefits of fasting later in this video. Thirdly, fasting makes your natural levels of human growth hormone, or HGH, skyrocket by as much as 5 times, which has huge benefits for burning fat and building muscle. Fourthly, there are all sorts of changes in the way genes function related to longevity and protection against disease. But if you're interested in knowing more about how that all works, have a look at some of those specialists I mentioned earlier. And lastly, there are all sorts of anecdotal accounts of people focusing better, losing weight faster, and feeling more energized when practicing intermittent fasting than almost any other eating pattern out there. There are lots of different ways to approach fasting, including alternate day fasting, periodic fasting, and daily time restricted feeding. But I'm going to explain a few of the most commonly accepted by fitness and nutrition professionals. And before I do, it's important to understand that there are 4 stages to fasting. The fed state, which lasts about 3 hours after eating. The early fasting state, which lasts between 3 to 18 hours after eating. The fasting state, which occurs between 18 to 48 hours after eating. And the long-term fasting state, which starts at about 48 hours and lasts for as long as you can survive without eating. Side note, I do not recommend trying to set any records here. Fasting can reduce inflammation, allow you to focus better, improve heart and cardiovascular health, and even help you lose weight or build muscle. But long-term fasting can also be dangerous, so just do your own research before you decide to try it. Following this pattern is extremely simple. The first thing to do is to set a fasting period of 12 hours a day and stick to it. A common example is something like 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., which means finishing dinner at 8 p.m., then having breakfast at 8 a.m. A fasting period of 12 hours causes the body to begin transforming its fat reserves into energy. This process is known as ketosis, and ideally, for many people, this process also translates into weight loss. The ketogenic diet, aka the keto diet, is a low-carb, high-fat diet that also puts your body into a state of ketosis. Ketosis is one of the end goals of both fasting and the keto diet, but the method for achieving ketosis is different. Fasting involves time restriction, and keto involves dietary restriction. When your body enters ketosis, it becomes incredibly efficient at burning fat for energy by turning fat into ketones in the liver, which then supply energy to the brain and body. So if you've never tried fasting before and you want to give it a shot, fasting for 12 hours is definitely the way to go. And if you schedule this period around when you're in bed, you'll be spending most of the time sleeping. It's worth mentioning that many people still think doing cardio on an empty stomach is a great weight loss technique because the body is beginning to burn fat for energy in that early fasted state. And while it's true that your primary source of energy is fat when you're in that state, you're also breaking down amino acids, A.K.A. muscle tissue, to sustain yourself. So if you're interested in reaping the benefits of cardio first thing in the morning, but don't want to do it on an empty stomach, do it with amino acids in your system in the form of a protein shake, essential amino acids, or EAA, or branched chain amino acids, BCAAs, to help protect your muscle mass. This is the most popular type of intermittent fasting, and it's the one that I've been practicing for the past 4 years. With this type of fasting, also known as the 16-8 method, we now have a 16-hour fasting window and an 8-hour feeding window. A common fasting window, and the one that I like most, is something like 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. the next day, which means finishing dinner at 8 p.m., then fasting until lunchtime the next day, which is technically breakfast. Breakfast literally means to break the fast, so breakfast is actually whenever you eat after fasting. The popular phrase, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, was invented in the 19th century as a marketing campaign to sell breakfast cereal, but it's not entirely untrue. The first meal you eat after fasting is arguably the most important meal of the day because it's your first opportunity to provide your body with essential nutrients. But when you eat that meal really doesn't matter. Fasting for 16 hours each day is a perfect next step for you if you're already applying the 12-hour fast but aren't really seeing the results you want to in terms of weight loss or increased focus and energy. Just like the 12-hour fast, you should use the time that you're sleeping as part of the fasting window. This type of fasting is known as eat, stop, eat, and consists of not eating anything for 24 hours, ideally from lunch to lunch or breakfast to breakfast. Most people just drink water, tea, or coffee during the 24-hour fast, but anything is fine as long as it doesn't contain calories. A 24-hour fast is a lot more challenging for people, sometimes causing headaches or fatigue the first time they try it, which is why I recommend working your way up from 12 hours to 16 hours before making the jump to 24 hours. Fasting 2 days per week, commonly known as the 5-2 diet, means eating normally for 5 days, then reducing your calorie intake to about 500 calories during the remaining 2 days. This isn't really fasting because you're consuming calories on those 2 days, but it can be an excellent way of helping you lose weight by helping you create a regular calorie deficit throughout the week. Side note, if you don't know what a calorie deficit is, go watch this video right now to learn why fasting intermittently does not mean that you can just eat as much as you want within your eating window. Intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating in general will only help you lose weight if you also create a consistent calorie deficit. When fasting 2 days a week, it's recommended that you don't fast on consecutive days, so that there's at least one regular day in between fasted days. For example, you might fast on Tuesday and Friday, then eat normally every other day. This eating pattern is often recommended for people with diabetes because it helps reduce insulin levels and improve insulin sensitivity. It's also recommended if you like the idea of fasting for 24 hours, but have lots of trouble kind of pushing through the whole day. One of the biggest fears that people have when they think about intermittent fasting is being hungry. In fact, this was the main reason it took me so long to try fasting for myself. I had always liked the idea of giving my body a rest from digesting food, but I used to get extremely hangry whenever I missed a meal, and I thought there's no way that I could fast and not kill someone.
What?
It turns out I was completely wrong, and that fasting would actually teach me to manage hunger better than ever. So let's take a really practical look at how you can try fasting without feeling hungry all the time. It's a lot easier than you think. First of all, you should always include the hours you sleep in your fasting window. Sleep alone covers anywhere from 6 to 8 hours for your average person. That time, plus the time between when you eat dinner and when you go to bed, is the first and easiest chunk of your fasting window. So, for example, if you finish dinner at 8 p.m. and go to sleep at 11 p.m., that's your first 3 hours. Then you wake up at 7 a.m., drink some water, do a quick workout, take a shower, brush your teeth, then you eat breakfast at 8 a.m. Just like that, you've already completed your first 12-hour fast. Now, you may be thinking, I already do that almost every day. And you're right. Lots of people regularly fast for 12 hours but don't even notice it. That's how easy it is to do a 12-hour fast. Once you graduate to 16, 20, or 24-hour fasts, that's when hunger really starts to kick in. Most people curb their hunger by drinking lots of water, tea, and/or coffee throughout the day, but some other ways to help keep hunger at bay are 1. Eat lean protein, healthy fats, and lots of fiber during your eating window. 2. Easy to moderate exercise. Even just walking can be an effective appetite suppressant. This does not include HIIT or strength training, so only do those if you've eaten something beforehand. And 3. Research shows that getting more sleep results in feeling less hungry. This has to do with your body's hormone balance, which is disrupted when you get poor sleep. And that's it! Intermittent fasting can be an incredibly effective way to lose weight, build muscle, boost energy, and eat all the foods you love every day. And if you've tried fasting before, I'd love to hear about your experience, whether you loved it or completely hated it. So drop a comment below and let me know how it went for you. And if you liked this video or at least learned something, please like it, subscribe, and hit the little notifications bell so that you don't miss out on future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, guys.